You thought he was done? You thought the takes were too hot to handle? You better think again. He's back with even more scorching opinions, more controversial predictions, and the kind of truth bombs that only Zain Bando can deliver. If you missed the first round, prepare yourself. This is the follow-up you've been waiting for. It's time for Zain Zinger Part 2, another certified hit from the Empty the Bench Network. Here's your host, Zain Bando.
What's up, everyone? We are live with Zain Zinger Part 2 as the intro begins to fade out. My name is Zain Bando. Thank you so much for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. It is Sunday morning, officially the start of a new month. It is February 1st, 2026. Shout out to the 4 people who are already in the stream. Thank you so much. Zain Zinger Part 2 is live right now on a bunch of different platforms. We're live on my YouTube channel, the ETB Network YouTube channel, Bando's Breakdowns, as well as the ETB Network Twitter account and my Twitter account. So for those of you who are tuning in right now, you can catch Sunday's episode and or replay on YouTube and or X as well. And I was going to give you guys an update on Kick and Twitch, and now I have that update for you guys as well. For the time being, we've decided to no longer stream to Kick and Twitch. We really want to build the X community and YouTube communities up. So for those of you guys who are tuning in from multiple sources, please be sure to retweet the stream. Please be sure to like the stream. That way I know and everybody in the network knows that you guys like the content that we're putting out. And for those of you who don't know, this is also an extension of Bando's Breakdowns. For those of you who maybe missed Bando's Breakdowns this past week, it was episode 75. You can listen to that right now wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can also watch that episode, which includes a special guest interview with new Chicago State head football coach Bobby Rome. You can watch that entire episode in full. It's about an hour with the interview. YouTube.com/ETB Network would be greatly appreciated if you guys checked that out. All right. For those of you who maybe have never seen me before, my name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and an ETB Network co-host who primarily covers the world of combat sports, so mixed martial arts and boxing, as well as collegiate athletics, primarily focusing on the Big Ten. You can find a bunch of my work, a bunch of different places. You'll find my work over at The Sporting News. You will find my work over at Field Level Media. You will also find my work over at Dallas Wings on Sports Illustrated. You will find my work over at MMA Knockout on Sports Illustrated, which is where the majority of my MMA content lives these days on a day-to-day and month-to-month basis. And of course, you can also find some of my work as well over at Dallas Wings and Sports Illustrated. I've dabbled into the WNBA since about July of last year, and I've been really interested in it, and I'm hoping it potentially leads to me covering the All-Star game in my home city of Chicago. That's, of course, to be determined if that is going to be the case. But nonetheless, you can check out my work there. And of course, you can check out my work over at Ohio State on Sports Illustrated as well. I contribute a bunch of stuff for them, primarily focusing on football. There's another person that does men's basketball. So I primarily handle the football side of things for them. And what's unique about Ohio State's coverage compared to really any of these other schools that I've covered. I've done, obviously I cover Illinois, but I covered briefly Kansas State for a couple months. and it just the contrast difference of some of these programs. There's tons of off-season news for the likes of Ohio State, big brand and stuff like that. But for some of these other programs, there just isn't. So I find that to be very interesting, especially if you're in the journalism space, in the college space. I'm sure a lot of you guys who are traditional beat reporters can relate to that as well. That there's just some schools where, some months there's a lot going on, and then other months there isn't. So you can also check out my work over there. You can typically find about 130 or so pieces of content from me every single month across all those sites. So if you want to tune in, you can certainly tune in. But of course, the majority of my work does go to the sporting news. So if you want college coverage almost every single day, you can check out my author profile over there. And then, of course, over here at the ETB network, I do a lot of things. So, of course, as I just alluded to, I host the Bando's Breakdowns flagship show, which is what this program is a spin-off of. It's essentially the Sunday version of this, where I take my hottest takes of the week and I expand upon them, as well as add new ones and give you sort of a end of weekend wrap up, if you will, before we move on to the next week. So this is what this stream is all about. So if you guys know my Bando's Breakdowns work from that, you'll know that this is an extension of that. So you can kind of call these half episodes. So if you want to be cute, you can say this is episode 75 and a half, if you really wanted to do that. I also host the MMA Outsiders with Jack Gold. That's every Thursday. That's a live show in the afternoons. That's at 3 Eastern. We preview and recap every UFC event, and we go into the news and notes of everything there is to know about MMA. And of course, I also host ETV Sports with Nick Morganson, who oversees the entire network, and we go over everything in the world in sports, and we talk about things that typically don't make any of my shows at all. So it's nice to have a bit of a balance of all three. And then, of course, I contribute to the likes of the football forecast during the NFL season, Forever Power 5 during the college football season. That show just wrapped up, and a bunch of other stuff. I'm like really involved in everything that we're doing here. So nonetheless, that's kind of everything about me, and this is where you can see all my video-based content. So without further ado, let's get started with the stream. And I apologize that we've kind of rambled on a bit, but nonetheless, here we go. So to start off, UFC 325. It was the second of a back-to-back stint of numbered UFC events. And I'm going to start calling them those because the UFC is no longer on pay-per-view in the United States. They're on Paramount Plus now. So this was the second weekend of those. And on this card, we had Alexander Volkanovski defeat Diego Lopez once again in their rematch by unanimous decision to retain his UFC featherweight championship. He becomes tied with Jose Aldo for the most featherweight championship title wins with 8 now. So he has 2 against Lopez, and it's his first successful title defense of his second reign. You have to remember, he did hold the belt for a considerable amount of time. I think it was December of 2019 until April of 2024, if I'm not mistaken. So it had been quite a long time that Volk had held the title. But nonetheless, though, it was a good fight overall. I just thought Volk looked really good. His boxing looked crisp. Everything about the fight just sort of went according to plan on his end, and he was able to walk away with a unanimous decision win. Overall on the card, we went 7-6. I took a dart upset pick with Jamie Malarkey against Quinlan Salkild. I'm never betting against picking against, rather. I did not bet on this fight. I would have lost. I am not picking against a minus 1,000 or more favorite ever again. That was a mistake. I thought Malarkey would show out in front of Australia. He did not do that whatsoever. Benoit Saint Denis with another really impressive performance, looked awesome in his fight as well. And of course, you got to look at Mauricio Huffy. Mauricio Huffy looked damn good as well. And the heavyweight fight between Taliesin Teixeira and Derek Lewis just was not it overall. It was very, very disappointing as such. And one of those fights that you kind of wish you didn't watch, but you watched it anyway, because of the intrigue with what's going on in the heavyweight division. So just something to keep in mind as well. But overall, I thought the card was decent. Let's talk about Paramount and some of the changes they made on this broadcast, which I thought some were good. But overall, though, there weren't as many ads during the main card. So that's really good. The main card felt like a traditional main card stream from pre-Paramount. So that was really good. You got to see the walkouts and you got to see the corners with the ads in between. But you could still see it. So it was like a split view with thing. So that was cool. But the prelims, for whatever reason, I could not watch all of the walkouts. And I don't know why. Some people were saying that they could, and other people were saying that they couldn't. I checked again. I have Paramount Plus Premium. So I think something is wrong with some of the streams, to be quite honest with you, for some plans, because some of them people are saying are working flawlessly and they're not getting any ads at all. While other people are saying they're getting ads and they don't know why they're getting them. I'm one of the people that doesn't know why they're getting them. So that's something that they're going to have to address in the future. But overall, I thought the main card pacing was really good. As Ariel Hawani alluded to, the first fight got off at 9:21 Eastern, which was unreal. That was a great start time for that. But man, the amount of airtime they have to fill at the beginning of these cards to cater to the Fight Pass prelim crowd, I think they need to fix that. I think they need two different broadcast versions of that. They need one that's the Paramount one where it's going to take you all the way through the entire card. So you click on one stream and it's the full card. That's what they did for the prelims. Because I watched, the whole card on Paramount as an experiment, and I noticed that during the prelims they didn't make me change the stream, but as soon as the main card started, they made me flip over. So I thought that was very interesting. So that's number one. And number two, if they could just make one continuous stream, I think a lot of people would be not as disappointed. I really, really believe that. So if any of you guys had ads or anything, comment in here and we could discuss it a little bit more for a couple minutes here before we move on. But overall, I thought the broadcast was better. I thought the UFC learned from its mistakes. The pacing was really good. They got off the air in a timely fashion, and it was perfect because I was a few minutes late to the start of the fight. But as soon as Volkanovski versus Lopez was over, which I don't have a banner for this because we just don't have time to talk about it because the fight wasn't very good. But Shakur Stevenson's fight with Teofimo Lopez at Madison Square Garden on DAZN was minutes away from starting as soon as UFC was over. So the timing of those two cards could not have been any better. And I don't know if that was planned out or anything. I put it on my X account yesterday that Dana White decided not to go to Australia and watch the fights in Vegas, and his setup was insane. I think it was more than likely at his house. I mean, he had this crazy screen where it was a double picture, and one side was DAZN and the other side was UFC, and it could not have been more awesome. So I don't know. Overall, though, it was a good night of combat sports, and in fact, the night before, this is a perfect segue to this, was a great night for some huge college basketball. So Michigan State played Michigan, top 10 matchup in East Lansing at the Breslin Center, and Michigan went in there and silenced the Michigan State Izzo faithful and beat Michigan State in a crazy game. Michigan State was down by as much as 18, I think is what it was. Came back and took the lead at one point and ended up losing at the end of the game. I mean, those guys are good. Elliot Cadeau is awesome. Russ Johnson Jr. is awesome. I'm excited to watch these guys in a couple weeks. I think it's in 10 or 14 days, and I'm going to go up to Evanston to watch these guys play. But these guys are awesome. These guys are really good players. It makes sense why Michigan, by some metrics, is one of the best teams, if not the best team in the Big Ten. Michigan State is still a very good team too. Tom Izzo admitted that he was very disappointed in his players with the way they performed, especially in the first half, just not being able to get things going, not being able to get open looks, and having to come from behind in the second half was just absolutely brutal from a Michigan State standpoint. So they have lots to work on, but they have more time to get ready. They have a huge game against Illinois in about 6 or so days. And speaking of Illinois, that's the perfect segue into the second to last topic, because Illinois plays Nebraska this afternoon in Lincoln. It's the rematch of Illinois' only Big Ten defeat so far. Of course, that was Jamarcus Lawrence's buzzer beater in Champaign in December, which is a game I was supposed to be at, but the snow kept me away. One of the craziest Big Ten games of the whole year, not knowing, nobody knew how good Nebraska was going to be at that point in the year, but now they're really good. They've only lost one game, and its only loss rather is to Michigan. They come back to Pinnacle Bank Arena, and there's a lot of pressure on these guys to keep winning, because Connor Arcesian and that whole team is a team that's that's playing really well. Obviously, Connor Arcesian is documenting this on Instagram, kind of from an outsider perspective, if you will, because I think he's dealt with some injuries himself. But nonetheless, though, it's a big game. It's an important game. Obviously, Keaton Wagler is going to play well today. You got to expect that Jake Davis is going to have a big day today if Illinois is going to want to win today. And they're just going to have to play really strong defense. They're going to have to be defensively sound, not get into a street fight, and not get into a track meet with these guys, because the last time they got into a track meet, they lost, and that came back to bite them. So again, Illinois has won 10 in a row going into this game. I think it's a 3 or 4 way tie for first in the league, so it's a huge game, and the 4 best teams in the Big Ten played this weekend, so still a lot to be decided in regards to who may win the league in about a month or so, but this could be a huge measuring stick game for either of these teams. And of course, if Illinois wins today, which would be massive if it did, they'll be a top 5 team on Monday, or sniffing the top 5 tomorrow if they can get it done in Lincoln. So I'm excited for this game. Tune in for Eastern FS1. It's a big day in college basketball overall. You won't want to miss that. It's on the crazy college basketball calendar that Fox Sports put out a couple of days ago. So that'll be cool. And yeah. All right, with a few minutes to go in the stream, let's talk about Zuffa Boxing 02. Zuffa Boxing 1 was Callum Walsh versus Carlos Ocampo. I went over that entire card this past week on the latest edition of Zain Zinger Part 2. So if you haven't watched last week's episode, go and do that, because it'll give you a flavor as to what I kind of look for in Zuffa Boxing overall. So I'm excited for this card. It's Valenzuela versus Torres. It should be an interesting fight. Let's take a look at who's on the card and give you some particulars. I'm going to tell you what my Zuffa Boxing record is as well. So let me go do that. We are 19-9 so far. 19-9-2 so far, with the 67.9% clip. In 2026 so far, though, we are 6-2. The reason why we're 19-9 is because I picked all the cards leading up to this year's Zuffa Boxing launch, because there were a few that were under the Zuffa Boxing banner that were smaller Ring Magazine cards, so so Dana could figure out who he wanted to sign, is I think the word on the street with that. But nonetheless, though, it's a fun promotion so far. Only 8 fights down for the year in 2026. But let's briefly go through who is on this card. That way you guys know the entire card is on Paramount Plus. And Dana White, as I just alluded to a couple minutes ago, stayed back in Vegas to watch both UFC and the Teofimo Shakur fight. But I think he really stayed back so he could go to his second Zuffa Boxing show, because he wasn't going to miss it. So we have Jose Valenzuela taking on Diego Torres in the main event, 14-3 versus 22-1. And then for those hardcore boxing fans out there, Sergey Boyachuk is making his return against the 16-1 fast rising contender in Razab Butiev. It should be a good fight. That's at 154. The main event, I forgot to mention, is at 140. A couple other fights. Alexander Godzik is 21-2. He's taking on Kaladajchuk, and I cannot pronounce his first name worth anything. And Jaleel Hackett is also taking Roberto Cruz. There are some other notable fights on this card. Only 3 main card fights for the event. The rest of them are preliminary bouts, so should be a good card overall. Let's take a look at when it gets underway. It is a 6 p.m. Eastern start. Charles Bosicker is the matchmaker for this event. And again, Sunday, February 1st, Meta Apex, the main card of this thing, begins at 9 p.m. Eastern. And by the way, for those of you who got in the memo, Dana White is doing a giveaway where if you watch one of the next 2 Zuffa boxing cards or both, that would be this one or the one on February 15th, you can win a pair of tickets, a flight, everything's covered. UFC, Power Slap, and Zuffa Boxing 06, or excuse me, 05 it would be, I think. 05 or 06, I can't remember. Nonetheless, it's Jai Opataya's Zuffa Boxing debut. You can watch that fight, Power Slap, and UFC from Dana White's personal section if you make a video, tag Zuffa Boxing, and explain why you are the worthy winner of the giveaway. I'm going to do this. I think I have a legitimate shot to win this giveaway. I've been to 14 UFC events. I was at McGregor Poirier 3. I've met Dana White on 2 separate occasions. I've asked him a question before. And I've been to every UFC Chicago event except for Home Shevchenko. Otherwise, if you want to count that because I went to the weigh-ins, I guess you can. I've been to every Chicago UFC event and Illinois UFC event. In fact, because they used to not even go to Chicago. I've been to every Illinois UFC event live except for Home Shevchenko since 2008. I don't think a lot of people can say that they've been to practically all of them. But again, if you want to count the weigh-ins as a card I went to, I guess you can. So nonetheless, that's the giveaway. And again, only one person can win. It's that person and a guest. 4-day trip to Las Vegas. Seems like the coolest giveaway Dana's ever done. And it's 3 cards, 2 tickets for each, so you get 6 tickets total. So I think it's pretty awesome. So nonetheless, though, that'll do it for the Zuffa Boxing 02 preview. All right, let's talk about what's to come up next, as we like to do on this program. Bando's Breakdowns, episode 76. It's the first time this year that we will not have a guest. It's a traditional show. First 2 guests so far. We've had Scott Ramsey and Bobby Rome. More guests to come in the coming weeks. Not ready to announce anything yet at all, as nothing is confirmed. But what I can tell you is it's a traditional show. But we're going to be talking mostly about the Super Bowl. We're also going to be talking about what happened at UFC 325. We'll go a little deeper. We'll talk about fallout, if anything happens, if there's, fight announcements off that card or, guys, taking next steps. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about any White House rumors that we may hear of, as we might get White House rumors for going forward. As Dana said, early February is when this card would be finalized. So we're in February now, so that gives him a springboard to potentially make some announcements in the future. And we're also going to be talking about some college basketball, because we really have not spoken about college basketball extensively on this show, at least for the Bando's Breakdowns 2026 season this far. So we'll go through that. And we'll go over some other news and notes. We'll go over current event stuff. We'll talk about Belichick probably again, and we'll go over some other stuff that is around the sports media sphere. We'll also probably talk about the Unrivaled festivities this past Friday in Philadelphia that featured a bunch of stars, including Paige Beckers as well. So we may end up talking about her Breeze BC team is very, very fun to watch. They had a great game the other night with Kelsey Plum and the Phantom. They lost that game, but they played really well and nearly pulled out a huge win on Friday night in front of a crazy crowd in Philadelphia, the largest women's sporting event ever attended. So it's clear women's sports are looking up, and it's very exciting as well. So that is going to be episode 76 this coming Friday, wherever your podcast. So stay tuned for that and so much more. All right. We've gotten to that point in the show where there's 5 minutes left, and I'm going to do my thank yous now. Thank you to everyone who tuned into today's stream, the 31 people who tuned in. Thank you to all of the new Instagram followers. My Instagram's been blowing up lately. I don't know what the hell is going on, but the algorithm is back at seeing me again, which I really appreciate. So shout out to all the new followers. We're getting closer and closer to that 5,000 number on my personal Instagram. So shout out to all of you guys that are potentially making this huge milestone in the next couple of weeks a sure possibility. So I appreciate you guys on that front. And I also appreciate all of the new interaction that I've been getting on my reels on Instagram and on TikTok. I appreciate you guys. And just as one final reminder about those, in case you missed it or you tuned in late, you can follow the show on social media at Bando's Breakdown. And of course, if you want every episode of Bando's Breakdowns, you can watch them on youtube.com/EDB Network or my personal YouTube channel as well, as I'm collaborated on all the videos that go out. So even if you go to my YouTube channel, you can watch them there as well. Or you can listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcast. So if you're on a jog, if you're at work, if you're on a break, pop me in, choose your feed of choice, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Acast, iHeartRadio, any of those. We're literally on every platform imaginable. So anything that you prefer, pop me in for about 30 or so minutes or an hour based on some of these guests that we've been having on the first couple weeks of the year. But nonetheless, pop me in and enjoy 30 or so minutes or longer of Bando's Breakdowns for that week. And please be sure to leave a 5-star review, because that tells me that you love the content that I've been putting out. You want more of it on a weekly basis. And if there's a crazy human that wants me to do 2 Bando's Breakdowns a week in the not too distant future, we may be able to work out. We may be able to work out a discussion about that. I don't know how exactly that would work, but if you are a Bando's Breakdowns sicko fan and you want me twice a week instead of once a week, I mean, and I guess this is technically this stream right here, or this extension right here is basically the sicko version of the show, as it is anyway. But if you want a legitimate new episode of Bando's Breakdowns, potentially twice a week, just let me know, and maybe I can fit it in every so often. No guarantees every week, as I keep it consistent with one show a week. But nonetheless, though, if you guys really like this kind of content, and you want more of it, or even more Zain Zinger Part 2s, I may even be able to do that. But nonetheless, though, it will be a busy Super Bowl week, so we're going to talk about really quick what the Super Bowl week is going to entail, and I'll pop my name back up on here. So what we're going to do for Super Bowl week is pretty interesting. So with a few minutes left, I'll tell you, this show and Gridiron Gurus next week, which is the show with Ben Cruz, Michael Rapolo, and Grant Winsauer, is being combined with my show. So there's no traditional Zain Zinger rundown as I usually do. It's going to be whatever the three of us decide. So it's going to mainly be a football show. If you want a Zinger style edition of next week's content, you're going to have to get it either on the newest episode of Bando's Breakdowns, and there's also going to be a Bando's bonus video that is going to be coming out the day after the Super Bowl, or we may even put it out the night after the game, that's going to recap the entire Super Bowl in probably this time 10 to 15 minutes, because Bando's bonus, the concept of it is in under 3 minutes or less. But because of the circumstances, we might go a little bit longer, but just stay tuned. It's not going to be a traditional Zain Zinger episode, but I will be hosting a combined Super Bowl early pregame show. There's going to be a bunch of benchmarks episodes that are releasing. I think Nick Morgeson and Callan McClurg are doing a bit of a press row style pregame show as well. So there's a lot of content to come on the network. But until next week, that'll do it for this edition of Zain Zinger Part 2. My name is Zain Bando. Enjoy your Sunday without football. If you are ready for a lot of college basketball, I don't blame you. But again, stay warm. Enjoy your weekend. I really appreciate you guys. And I will catch you guys very, very soon. Thanks again. Have a good one. And we will see you guys later on. And one more thing, just be sure as well to please cheer responsibly next weekend, whether you're a Seahawks or Patriots fan. But nonetheless, have a good one, everyone. We'll see you later. Thanks again.